Welcome to another edition of the Get Made podcast. I got a great episode for you guys today. One of the things I love to do here at the Get Made podcast is bring exciting guests that some of us know, some of us don't know, but need to know, and some that we don't know, we need to know, or who got some great information for you, right? And this guest I have today is an exciting man. I think I've been following him for a few years now on social media. Just looking at some of the things he's done, from events that he's put on, if I'm not mistaken, on the lake, on a boat.
Wow.
Yeah,
You went way back.
yeah. You see what I'm saying? I've been following you for a minute, Shake. You know what I mean? And so, and and to other events that he has going on even within the city of Detroit right now. Like to welcome you to our show, and I'd like everybody to meet Khalil Muhammad, entrepreneur extraordinaire, social entrepreneur. What else you want to call it? Family man, businessman, community man. Just call it what you will. His brother's all around. He has a lot that we're gonna bring to the table. But I just gave a little shot about who you are, Sheikh. Why don't you tell everybody who you are and what you got going on with yourself?
Alhamdulillah, I am honored to be here, my brother. I watch your show, Alhamdulillah, and I recently just watched you and your wife on the show with my wife. I don't know, it just came through my feed. It was really amazing to now see that we're actually talking to each other. But yes, she had to speak. She said something to the guy who was running the show on your behalf.
Oh
What
yeah,
show was it?
yeah.
Yeah.
That was a podcast summit. David Shands. That was his
Oh
podcast
man, that
summit
was wonderful.
back in the summer of last year. Yeah.
Yeah, that was wonderful. I was watching that with my
Yeah.
wife, and
Oh,
then
your wife was
now,
there? Your wife was there?
no, we were watching you
Oh, okay.
on like YouTube or something, and we don't
Yeah.
watch YouTube, so it
Oh,
just
okay.
popped up, and I'm like, wait a minute, I know him. Right. Yeah,
Mashallah,
it was
mashallah.
beautiful. It was very
Yeah,
beautiful.
that was an exciting time, you know what I mean?
That was
And
beautiful.
I'm happy to see my wife kind of get her flowers,
Wow, didn't she? Didn't she?
yeah, you know what I mean?
Yes,
So
yes.
that's beautiful.
I was nudging my wife like, did you see that?
Yeah, I got a lot of that come back to me, you know what I mean? And so alhamdulillah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. So hey, tell us a little bit more about yourself, Khalil, if you don't mind.
Oh, well, I'm Khalil Muhammad. I'm here in Detroit. I'm multifaceted, so it all depends on who I'm talking to, right? So, a little bit for you and the audience today. I'm the owner of the Motivational Museum, which is an art gallery here in Detroit. And we sell art to the public, but we utilize the money to develop events to uplift our community.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm the author of Meditate to Elevate, which is just came out maybe a few months ago, as
Mm-hmm.
well as I own a hardwood flooring company where I train young Black men. I used to train women too, but right now, young Black men, I teach them trades so that they can be independent, right? So they don't have to become beggars. So I do a lot, man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm whatever I can do to give all that I have from what Allah has given me, man. I work.
Nah, mashallah, that's a beautiful thing, man. I appreciate you. So, Khalil, I'm going to be honest with you. It's probably going to be a two-part series that we're going to do. Probably break it up between 35, 40 minutes on each one,
Yes, sir.
right? So everybody just stay tuned to part two of this thing as well. We're going to do part one today, so y'all already know what's happening, right? And one of the things that we do at the Get Made podcast, Shake, is we have three questions. And the third question actually pivots over to the conversation that we're going to have itself, right? So the first question is, any inspirational books you have read of late or just read purposely that has been influential for you that, let's say outside of the Quran, right? Outside of the Quran, right? Because we always know that's very inspirational. That's something that we live by, right? but and specifically if it's a black male who wrote the book.
Wow, wow. Oh, Dad, you changed it. That made a big change right there.
Well, not that,
So,
now if you can move there, but if not, then be where you are, right?
so one of my foundation outside of the Quran is Dr. Naeem Akbar.
Hmm.
He's out of Florida.
Yeah, I remember a
Uh,
lot of books Dr. Naeem Akbar used to write, maybe about 30, 40 years ago, maybe. Yes, sir.
Yes, and
Yes.
I read his books and I can read them over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Those books are what started me to understanding the psychology of Black people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So his books, I would say, you know, and I would say a little less Brown, but more so Naeem Akbar. He's one of
Akbar.
my
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, man. I saw him here in Detroit and he had a sold out crowd.
Oh, wow.
I was so happy to see him that I ran on the stage, right? And literally, like a
Uh-huh.
fan. And I
Wow.
began to talk to him, and it was amazing because I began to actually inspire him. I was like, "Where have you been?" It's
Uh-huh.
through Allah's grace, it's because of you who inspired me to study, the things that I do now. So it was
Mhm.
amazing to see him. I
Wow.
think he had a little sickness that it gave him a little setback, but he didn't know that, he was so still appreciated so much. He was
Right.
literally shocked.
Right. I'm gonna tell you no lie, man. My During my whole incarceration, right? That was some of the first books that I
Mm,
was reading, right?
mm,
Trying to get wrapping my head about my identity,
right.
especially as a black male, and as as a Muslim, right?
Mm,
And so that was kind of how I started even wrapping myself around my identity as a man by a lot of his books,
yes.
and she was that change imagery, psychological slavery, and all that. You know what I mean? And
Yes. Yes.
so it was some of those more powerful books, man, back in the day. You know what I mean? That was very inspirational and
Very,
helping me
very,
get
very.
there. Right. So that's a great job. Okay, two. All right. Now, you said Dr. Naeem Akbar, his books. What male do you know, what black
Uh-oh.
man that you know that has been inspirational for you?
Oh, of course. Imam Siraj Wahaj.
Okay.
Imam Siraj Wahaj, when I grew up as a child, there was a competition for
Okay.
Islamic knowledge. So, state to states, we went to New York. And so it was like kind of my first time in New York. And I remember being on Atlantic Avenue,
Hmm.
and they had various imams come in as we competed. Well,
Oh,
Detroit lost
oh,
because
okay.
once I heard Imam Siraj Hajj, plus I saw New York for the first time, I
Okay.
wasn't thinking about that competition. So I decided that I wasn't coming back to Detroit. I told myself
Oh,
I
wow.
would not come back to Detroit until I was a man. So I
Hmm.
stalked Imam Siraj, meaning I watched him, saw
Hmm.
where he went, saw his masjid, and then I wrote him a letter because I was a writer. I've been a writer since middle school. So I
Okay.
sat down, I had the Imam Lukman's van, which I
Hmm.
drove from Detroit with a couple of other brothers. And I
Hmm.
decided I'm not going back home. I'm going to write Imam Siraj. I wrote him a letter and I
Hmm.
knew how to write in a way that he would respond. And I
Okay.
remember writing a letter, how to build a sustainable Islamic community. It was something like that. He
Hmm.
got that letter. He immediately had a meeting with me. And I told him I didn't want to come back home. So he gave me a job. And
Wow.
since then, I've always admired him. It
Hmm.
changed my thinking. Imam
Wow.
Siraj, hands down.
Wow, subhanAllah. I had the pleasure, I think it was man, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago, maybe a little bit more. I got to meet him over at his wife's restaurant, Spring Greens, over in
Yes.
here in Atlanta. and
Yes.
we got to eat together. And she got some of the best fried red snapper in the city,
Yes.
y'all. You know what I
Yes.
mean? So, and they only do it on Sundays. I'm giving a real quick plug for the spring greens,
Mm.
and I ain't getting paid for that, right? But yeah, I got the opportunity to meet him there, and I've been following him for a very long time myself. Of course, he was one of the other ones, him, Dawood Adib, back in the day, that really kind of helped shape me as far
Right.
as just listening to their texts and their tapes and the lectures on the tapes and things that nature there.
And
So.
you
Mhm,
just said that name, Dawood Adib. When I was there, this was way back in the 90s. I
mhm,
remember we used to go across to New Jersey and
mhm,
actually hear him because there was another imam that I came to stay with.
mhm.
Once I stayed with Imam Siraj, but I also stayed in Long Island with Imam Alameen because
Okay.
I knew him personally. I had
Okay.
just met Imam Siraj.
Mhm.
So we used to go over to, well, the young brothers in the community, we would go over to New Jersey. Wasn't he in New Jersey at one point in time?
Yeah, that's right. Right. I mean, Dawood Adib. Yeah, I think he's in East
Absolutely.
Orange. I
Yeah.
think he's East Orange.
Yes.
He's somewhere in New Jersey. I know for sure he was in New
Yeah.
Jersey at one time.
Yes. I haven't heard that his name in a long time, but yeah.
Yeah, he actually. I saw him do he did a podcast with someone maybe
Mm,
about close to a year ago, somewhere within the last year, and it's like a several part series to
mm,
him, and actually going back looking at Islam historically in America, right? And it was a pretty interesting podcast, to be honest with you, and
mm.
just hearing him speak his truths, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and speaking how things have transitioned over the years to where we are right now on certain aspects of Dean within the black community, right? It was interesting to hear some of his takes on that.
And I know it was powerful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Yeah.
Anytime he speaks, man, it's like like I said, I think the most influential lecture I ever heard was "Let Us Be Muslim,"
Mm.
right? And
Is it on YouTube?
yeah, I think it's YouTube. I had it on, of course, I had it on tape, bro. You talking about cassette tape right there, right? And so, but I think it might be somebody might have put it up on YouTube, but it was a very powerful thing. You talking about a man in his 20s, fresh in Islam, you know what I mean, and then hearing this lecture called "Let Us Be Muslim,"
Now
that
you
was
talk speaking about tapes, that's that was my job with Imam Siraj. I would record all his tapes, right? And
mm-hmm,
send them all over the world.
mm-hmm.
Like, I wonder whatever happened to all of those tapes. Those were some amazing cook bars.
Yeah, it
Especially
was, man. My wife made me get rid of all my cassette tapes, man. I ain't gonna lie to you. She said, why you keep all this stuff? All this is online now. You know what I mean? But those are some classics, man. Some of those tapes are some
classics.
classics.
Yeah, there was classics.
Yeah. And so she was purging, you know what I mean, getting stuff out the house, you know what I mean,
Right.
you gotta let her do what she do. But I was like, man, them tapes there,
Man,
man. There was some gold mines there.
gold mine.
Yeah.
Yes.
So last, then we're gonna dip right into the conversation. What is your opinion on the state of black manhood as it comes to not just entrepreneurship, but in trade, as far as having trades and having skills
Mhm, mhm.
to be able to provide for their families?
Yes. I think that I was just telling my young boys today how important it was, especially as we see what's going on with all this AI and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I remember a Caucasian told me, he said that there will become a time that you will be so busy because people will become so lazy and so involved in,
Mm-hmm.
all these social media and stuff like that. And that day has came. And it's so much work out here, especially if you have integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad that what I see with our beautiful young black men is that we have to get in shape mentally and physically so that we can do these trades and learn these trades. It's a ton of money out there, but
Mm-hmm.
so much we from our people and Muslims too.
Mm-hmm.
Let's keeping it real.
Mm-hmm.
Muslims too. So much we is being smoked. So I don't know. I don't want to call it lazy, but it's like no enthusiasm in,
Mm-hmm.
especially to do trades. You really have to use your creative mind sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
especially in like what we do. And it's can be draining to a person without a strong mind, right? Doing
Mm-hmm.
calculations, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
you have to really focus. You don't want to cut your hand off. So, as I've trained many men, I can't even count them, right? You know, it gets rough for them, right? So you got to
Mm-hmm.
keep motivating them and encouraging them. But it's
Do you
sad.
do you believe it's the labor aspect of it? People just don't want to do, young
The
men now, they
mental
just don't want
labor,
to
as
do
I've
the hard
studied
work.
them,
Mm-hmm.
it's the mental labor, right? You can't just go and half behind something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to do something to strive for perfection, like
Mm-hmm.
the Prophet Muhammad SAW
So,
taught us
so,
to, you have
mm,
to really focus. And a lot of times I've noticed they don't really they have the brain power, but they
mm,
don't know how to tap into that brain power. It
mm,
becomes draining.
mm-hmm.
So you'll see that it's unfortunate. Uh, some of our people want to skip the procedures, right?
So the process, jump the
They
line of the
want to,
process.
yeah, and that's not good,
Mm-hmm.
right? They want to, yeah, and it's bad. So the outcome ends up very, very bad. And yeah, you have to have it's the mind power because we're not really that lazy because we do what we want to do.
Right.
But when you're doing construction and you're customizing things, you
Mm-hmm.
have to really be focused.
Right. You painting or you doing the auto repair or whatever it
Mhm.
is that you do, you really do have to be plumbing, whatever it is. Because those
Because you don't
jobs
want to give the
can,
people the wrong information,
right,
right? You don't want
right.
to damage people's stuff,
And
right?
you don't want to get hurt yourself.
You
Right.
don't want to get hurt yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't want to have to go back to a job, right? You want to
Mm-hmm.
do it right the first time and so you don't get called back because
Mm-hmm.
let's say you don't have the money, right? You you spent the money. Now you can't even afford to go back to fix
Right.
that person's house. Now you're
Mm-hmm.
hiding from them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what I see with our people. I'm sure it happens with Caucasians a lot too, but I see
Mm-hmm.
it with our people too much. Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
people who find us, you know, I was telling you when we had our conversation, a lot of people ask me about the art business and they're like,
Right.
how does it work? Well, it works when we do jobs specifically for Caucasians and these young Black Muslim brothers in particular come in there and show out. They are amazed. And that's when I bring out and show them about the art and sell the art. But when you do good work, it opens the doors for you. And
Mm-hmm.
so, not, normally they only want us, they only want me, or they only want our guys. So it's a beautiful thing, right? They don't want anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So when I try to turn other people on, it's like, nah, we want you. So if we got into it and stay dedicated and be patient because you're not going to get those big jobs overnight. It's going to take time. You're going to have to build up your credibility. I
Mm-hmm.
think that that'll be awesome for the young Black man, any Black man.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So you make a point in saying something, and I'm going to hit it and see what your thoughts is. You know, there is this idea of really people think money grows on trees,
Mhm.
right? And that they think that only thing I got to do is say I want it. They take affirming to a whole new level, right? A person affirming themselves or whatever, right? They take it to a whole new level, right? Speaking it into existence. That I think that's the term to use. They take speaking into existence to a whole new level, which then requires them not to do any work, which
Mhm.
then looks like laziness.
Mhm.
From your thought, if you have one in this one, you know, from your thought, how did we get there?
Right.
How did we put down work, putting down things, doing with our hands, and then just start looking for the instant gratification?
Right. So I want to say one thing before I answer that question. You
Hmm.
know, you can put it into existence, but physiology has to follow that psychology. So your body, like what do they say in the Bible? Faith without works is
Works.
dead, right?
Right.
You got to put the body to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but how did we get there? I think that it's really deep. I think this society, from an executive order. We're being manipulated through music, through entertainment, through television, through social media, through paid for probably by our beautiful government for whatever reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe is that they know how powerful a person who has come from struggle is. And Black people have struggled in this country for a long time. So
Mm-hmm.
once we put our mind to anything, we will win, right? And
Right.
so I think that's known. So there is some kind of effort from somebody, in government or in not just government, corporations, right?
Mm.
That don't want to see us elevate, who
Right. Which is another
understand.
form of government, corporation, which is another form of government. You know what I mean? So.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right. And I think that they know, and to hold us back, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
if we were able to really move forward and understood that they are not our God, right? We put
Mm-hmm.
our faith in Allah, right? And step up and do what we got to do, remove those shackles, as Naeem Akbar would talk about. And
Mm-hmm.
by also utilizing the Quran, once we really realize that Allah is Wadud, right? He's the loving and he's the El Ghani is the one I was trying to think of.
Mm-hmm.
Once we really realize that, we can move forward, but them, they have this psychological slavery on us. And I think that's what puts us where we are. And by the imagery, this imagery affects your brain.
Okay.
That's how we, move through life from imagery, from the images that we see. These
Mm-hmm.
things send signal to our brain, and then that's how we move. So they know this. So they put all kinds of subliminal messages, all kinds of imagery in our brains, and they have us, right? They don't have to put us behind back on the plantation, shall I say.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it to your mind.
Just do it to your mind. So you're already there. You know, you haven't even left the plantation at that point. You're already there. Wherever you might be, we got you.
You're
You know what I
right,
mean? We
right.
got you. You know, because I'm interested in just the understanding of as Black men, you know, how how we got to this point. I know growing up, I wasn't with my father, right? But I had a stepfather, you know, regardless of how I felt like he might have been to me, in some of his ways, he taught me how to work.
Right,
You know what I mean? And I may not like some of the work that he was doing because
right.
I'm not really into that type of things like that. But I know how to work, right? And I know how to work smart. But it doesn't seem like, you know, our young men today know how to work.
It doesn't seem like they do.
Right. It doesn't.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, then we don't want to put all the blame on the government. We want to put a little bit blame on the parenting, right?
Mhm.
A lot of parents, they is the word disable, or
Mm.
they do it to their children by
Or enable, or
enabling
enable,
them. They
enable.
enable them
Hmm.
by spoiling them, and never allowing them to fall, never allowing them to really get out here and see what it feels like, right? you know
Hmm.
they they raise them the way they do, and then wonder why they grow up with low self-esteem, because
Hmm.
of the bad parenting.
Wow, and a lot of times, man, people don't even realize that they are bad parenting, and they try to parent from a place where they don't want to parent how they parents parent them,
Right.
right? And give and take that. Let's say somebody in my age group, because I think you many years younger than I am, but somebody in my age group who parents were raised by true traditionalists,
Mm.
right?
Right.
Because I think my parents came through the baby boomer era, right? And but then they had those traditions. They still had traditionalist ways,
Hmm.
right? They still had, and then we had a whole nother subculture going on, another understanding of etiquettes and different things, even within the Black community, that I think really has left us.
Yes.
So, and along with that, it seemed like the work ethic has left us too. As long as,
Yeah.
and I think it's important. You saying this imagery. I know that even in sports, I think basketball became trash when ESPN came around,
Mm. Mhm.
right? That they quit because the only thing they kept showing you was the highlights. And all the highlights was some type of fantastic dunk or some type of,
Right.
spectacular move or whatever, and it wasn't the artistry of playing defense or
Right.
making the extra pass or being
Right.
disciplined on the court. So even to the point to where, and I'm going on a tangent here, even to the point to where the NBA started playing zone, right?
Right.
Because that's what they play in high school a lot, zone, right? And the
Yeah.
guys couldn't play at that level, but they can bounce that ball and score them points, but they couldn't
Right.
play defense, right? So we lost the work ethic and how to be efficient and proficient, if you
Right.
will,
And
right?
then think about this. People are having children, but
Mm-hmm.
not studying child psychology.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You'll buy something and you'll read the instructions on whatever it is that you purchase, but you have a child and you know nothing about child psychology. So you're
Mm-hmm.
actually ruining this child, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
don't even know, and you don't even care because your
Mm-hmm.
care is more about other things
Mm-hmm.
instead of focusing on developing an amazing child, right? A
Mm-hmm.
disciplined child. So
Mm-hmm.
people don't raise children anymore. We just had a situation where a 12-year-old girl was murdered here.
Oh
And I
wow.
don't know if you heard. Yeah, she was raped and murdered. Well, she wasn't raped, she was sleeping with a grown man. And he wanted to, he got her pregnant. So I'm trying to remember the story. And he
Mm-hmm.
wanted to abort the baby.
Okay.
So he tried to abort the baby himself, and they're still looking for the body. And by the
Oh
way,
wow.
the judge on that case is a Muslim sister. She's amazing. She's here in Detroit. Her name is Aaliyah. Her father is the treasurer. He's also a Muslim brother. He's
Okay.
the treasurer of this county we live in, Wayne County. But
Mm-hmm.
what Aaliyah said, Judge Aaliyah said in the courtroom, she said that the whole family, she told the whole family, she said, you all have failed this young lady, right? They've watched, they knew this man was sleeping with this little girl, but
Mm-hmm.
nobody did anything, even to the point that she was missing. And I think they didn't call the police until the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So people
So they
don't
still look. They're
raise.
trying to find the girl's body. They're trying to find the girl's
Yeah,
body.
but they
Oh wow.
charged him with murder because
Uh-huh.
they know she's dead
Mm-hmm.
because he asked her to erase the text messages, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now mind you, you got to go check the story out yourself because I don't watch TV. I
Right.
don't do I just know that's my Muslim sister Aaliyah. So I
Mm-hmm.
watched that. I knew the area. The situation was horrible. And so it started to, gravitate me into watching it, like
Mm-hmm.
start looking it up on my phone. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they charged him with murder without the body because they know he's murdered this young girl.
Wow. Wow.
But
SubhanAllah.
but but they're mad at the adults in the household. They're mad at all the adults, all the family members,
Mm,
because they let this happen. And which goes to my point. People don't raise their children. They don't even care about their children for real. They yell at them and curse at them all day, and they don't spend quality time with them. They don't show them they love them. They don't read to them. They don't do activities. They leave them locked up in the house. They don't take them to the park. They don't do anything with their children. They're
mm,
frustrated because of their situation that they caused on themselves, so they
mm.
take it out on the children. So
Right.
these are the children that you see in this society right now, looking for love, looking for attention, needing more dopamine. I mean, it's mad out here.
Right. Right. Wow. And so, and we then, I started, and as I tune in to especially men in this situation, and and people think I'm crazy because sometimes I follow this chick. I listen to some of the stuff she say. I think she's kind of crazy at times, but she has some points. This chick Candace Owens,
Mm,
right? And
yeah,
so, I think she kind of, batty sometimes, right? But every now and then you'll hear something even from a fool, right?
right.
And
Hey,
so and so, it's one of those things where she was talking about women trying to raise children by themselves and intentionally trying to do it, right? Now, I
mm,
know that most women aren't really in that position. They are not really trying to have kids. That they try to have them on their own, and they don't want no input from the father. They just use them as a sperm donor. You know what I mean, or whatever you want to call it, right?
mhm,
But then you have women who literally, you know, are in relationships with men who they know at some point deep down were not going to be around in the first place,
right.
right? So they made a choice. Then they made a choice to also have the kids, right? And so then the kids, especially when you get a young boy, don't have the proper guidance from a man. Me and a former guest that was here, out of lawyer out of DC, we were talking about this some years ago, and we was talking about the aspect of mentorship,
Mm,
right? And how women see their mothers be daughters to other women. But as men, we don't really see our fathers be sons to other men,
mm, mm.
right? So we don't have that thing being passed down. We might have some of the street codes passed down,
Yes.
but we don't have those things in which I don't know my father. I don't know my grandfather on my father's side. I don't know. I don't know my father. Hell, I didn't know my grandfather either, right?
Wow.
And so I don't know that line. Now I know my mother's side, right? But I don't know my father's side in that line of watching manhood from that perspective. My father's deceased now, obviously, but I didn't know him, right? And then when my mother got remarried, I didn't know his people. I know some of his brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? So I call them my aunts and uncles, right?
Right.
But I didn't know his parents.
Mm,
So I didn't see how he interact with another man who had authority over him.
right. Makes
But
sense.
then, but then he wanted to make sure he exuded authority over me.
Right.
You
With
know what I mean?
no with no training, with no understanding, probably never pick up a book on how to raise a child.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember raising my son, and he used to, he used to pee in the bed, on which I
Okay.
did too.
Right.
And it was frustrating because I was running this company at the time. So in the morning time, I was ready to go to work, right? I didn't want to be
Mm-hmm.
cleaning up pee, but I was always been against child abuse in any form or fashion. So I
Mm.
would try my best s- so that he could not see the frustration on my face, right? I
Okay.
tried. It came out anyway sometimes, but I used to try. So I would call a psychologist and asked her, is there any reason, like, why is he here? Because we didn't have Google back then. We didn't have
Right.
Chat GPT or AI or
Right.
none of
Right. Right.
that.
WebMD and all that. Right.
Right, right. So I would call a
Psychology Today
psychologist.
online, all that. Right.
Oh my God, I love the psychology today. So
Mm,
I would call the psychologist and I would ask her, and one day she told me, she said, his bowels probably haven't developed yet. And I'm like, oh my God. So just imagine all the parents who yell at their children for urinating in the bed at a really young age, and maybe their bowels haven't developed yet. So when you're yelling at them, you're killing their confidence because they look up to you like a superhero. And so
mm,
now they're seeing this person that means so much to me is upset with me, right? So you
mm,
just tearing their confidence apart. And so these are the kind of men that are not all, but some that are raising kids today as well as women. So
mm,
I get it, man. And now you come yelling at you, right? And it's like, bro, do you know anything about raising a child?
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So this is an interesting conversation, man, because we are stuck with young men who don't really have an idea of how to develop their future. They
Mm-hmm.
have wishful thinking, right? Everybody want to be rich, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody want the money, and everybody want the lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there is a there's a price to pay, and I really do believe. And I'm going to talk about this before we end this segment and get ready to go into another one, because we're going to talk about the solutions, how you think what we can do in order to move in some directions, some better directions, right? And kind of tease that out a little bit. But we're looking at young men who really don't know. They see, they see LeBron James at 18 getting $90 million, and they see all these people who do these things, and they see rappers who going around with the jewelry and the cars and clothing, and what look like high maintenance and high profile women, and you know they think this is the life and this is the life they want, but not knowing the work that it takes to get there, right?
Yes.
How do you see, as young men, we're talking to young men, and the responsibility of older men, their elders, right? What do you see the disconnect in the link of for that?
That's deep. That's deep. I taught a class the other day. I'll be teaching another one this Wednesday. Um, a young lady came to me. She's very popular in our community. She has a huge Muslim family. She's young. She's
Mm-hmm.
married. She has a few children.
Mm-hmm.
She said, Khalil, I want to join your class. And, I don't trust anybody but you. And she brought her husband. It was so amazing. And all the kids, man, I was so honored. But
Mm-hmm.
I know why. Because you have to communicate with them and speak to them in a language they understand to make that
Okay.
connection, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of our people, I see it all the time. I sit in Juma cook bars, and I've done it for years where, because I
Mm-hmm.
want to see the community better. I want to know what can I do to help the community improve. So sometimes when I go to Juma, I'm focusing, I'm listening, but I'm also looking around. Are the people really paying attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
Especially the young people are not paying attention because we're not connecting with them. We're not, we act as though the world that we've inherited, right?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have our own lingo, right?
Right.
They have their own way of communication too. We have to respect that, learn it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if we do that, oh man, they love it. So just before the kids came here for the class the other day, I had
Mm-hmm.
coincidentally visited my nieces, and I didn't know they all were going to be there, and they're all like 10 and
Mhm.
12 years old. So
Okay.
I was like, teach me the new words. What's how y'all be keep, so they were telling me all the words, how they talk. They were from
Uh-huh.
like 12 years old down. I'm like, oh my God, they're teaching me all these words.
Mhm.
Allah I didn't know the lady was going to bring all these kids to the class. I
Uh-huh.
left my nieces and came to the class.
Mhm.
And one of the little girls wanted to start covering, right? She
Okay.
wanted to get into the religion. She's like, I don't know if she's 11, the
Mhm.
girl who came to the Muslim girl. But
Okay.
I just so happened to learn those words. So as I'm teaching the class and I'm watching her, seeing if she's connecting, right?
Mhm.
I knew what to say to pull her attention. And
Right, to
so
get
once I
attention.
can, bam, now I can feed her this Islamic
Mhm.
knowledge, right?
Mhm.
And we don't we as Muslims, the Prophet Muhammad taught us
Um,
that when a Muslim endeavors to do a thing, he seeks to perfect it. A Muslim
mhm.
should be an excellence in every aspect of life, even if he worked in a gas station, right?
Mhm.
So I'm not the best communicator in the world, but I'm gonna try, right? I'm
Right.
gonna try my best because
Mhm.
that's what my religion teaches. And a
Mhm.
lot of people think the religion just teaches to wear a long garment and mishwak your teeth and
Mhm.
and learn some Quran and memorize some hadith that you don't even understand, right?
Right.
But it's about applying it, right?
Wow,
Applying yourself.
you
So
hit hard then, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. You kind of hit hard then, man. You say you're wearing long garments and miswhack your teeth.
right, right,
That
right.
that was
You
pretty
want
hard.
to
That was hard.
apply this so we can use it, right?
Mhm.
So how do I, these youth, we got to pass the baton to them. So, how do I communicate with them? How
Mhm.
can I get across to them? I have to have empathy. I have to have a lot of patience. I have to have a lot of understanding, right? I
Okay.
have to be, although we all judge, we can't help it,
Mhm.
right? But I have to try my best to be less judgmental in like a negative way, if that
Right.
makes any kind of sense, right?
Right. Mhm.
you know, um, don't be so abusive with the tongue and make it to where that they can trust you, right? And
Mhm.
they know that you're like their life coach, right? You want
Mhm.
them to make it and be the best at whatever it is that they
Big.
want to be in life.
Right. Right. For sure. So we're gonna end this one at that point right there. I want you to tell people how they can kind of contact you and show them your book, and
Right.
we're gonna pick back up on for part two.
Absolutely.
All right.
So, this is my book, Khalil Muhammad, Meditate to Elevate. You can go to motivationalmuseum.com. Once again, that's motivationalmuseum.com. You can order it from there and I can send it right to you. Or you can give Amazon the money, which I wish you don't, right? And they'll send it right to you. It's on
Mhm.
Amazon. You can find me at Khalil Muhammad on Facebook, on Instagram, colossal underscore poetry underscore lounge. Again, that's colossal underscore poetry underscore lounge.
All right, all right. So, and as he's selling his book, I want everybody to know. I don't know if he can say it again. This is my first solo venture of
Yes.
my first book, Arthur. It's called Taming the Storm:
Mm,
Understanding and Overcoming High Conflict Personalities for a Peaceful
mm,
Life.
mm.
Right. So this is a labor of love. This book, right? I just sit down, just various different things that I've experienced, some experiences that I had with some clients. Obviously, there's no identifying people in my book. You know what I mean? Names have changed. How they say to protect the innocent. You know what I mean? And but I wanted to make sure that you see how these things happen. What are some of the ways that we fall into having a high conflict personality, but also some tools to be able to use to do something different. This book also is a book, it's a workbook, and it's a guide. Right? It's a workbook, it's a journal in here as well.
Mm.
So check it out. Of course, I am on Amazon as well. So you can find it at Taming the Storm, Understanding and Overcoming High Conflict Personalities for a Peaceful Life. Peaceful Life by Hassan Clay. The Hassan is one S, as you know, HASANCLAY. Sometimes you got to tell people love calling me Hassan, you know what I mean? And so, which is good. So we're going to stop right here. Obviously, we're going to, you guys, every Monday at 7 p.m. on Facebook at Hassan Clay and on YouTube at the Get Made Podcast. Please check us out. Please turn on your notifications so you can hear it. And we're going to see you back next week with part 2 of this segment. All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.